had a lot of plot holes. I just felt that my main character was annoying. I just did not know how to make her likable. There's so many things wrong with that book by September. By November, by December, I was shish. But let me go in a linear fashion. This is my debut novel, The Keepers of Piiar, and today's video I'm going to be sharing my writing process, how I wrote the entire thing from scratch, and another video I'm going to share how I self-published the book. So stick around to learn my entire process. My debut novel is called The Keepers of Piiar. It's a new adult fantasy novel set in the Garden of Eden, where there are people living in the Garden of Eden and intruders enter, and like, you know, when intruders is not a good word, so obviously bad things are going to happen, and it's about the most flawed characters trying to save their home. So in this city called Piiar, we have Lami, our main character. From birth, she has been chosen to be the one who will next lead her people, who will protect her people, but she doesn't really want to, because she feels that she has the power of choice. Like, I can choose my life, I can choose my destiny. So we have Lami, we have Inkira, that's Lami's best friend. We have Shara, a blind girl who feels that she can do what it takes to protect her home. And we have Jabba. Jabba is one of the intruders, and throughout the course of the story, he learns a lot about Piiar, learns a lot about himself, learns a lot about what he's doing, and maybe gets a redemption arc. But it is not really a spoiler, because I think from the first scene you know that. What inspired me to write this book? I already have a dedicated video on the inspiration behind the book. It's a 2-minute YouTube video, and you can watch it maybe like 2-3 videos after this one. But I have always been fascinated by Atlantis, Bermuda Triangle, just hidden cities. I'm very curious about Garden of Eden. Is it really a real place? Is it still hidden? Is it like, just very curious about it. So I think I've always wanted to write a story about it. So maybe for like 10 years plus, I've wanted to write a story about it, but I just did not have the plot line. So I think maybe it was in 2022, 2021, I had this poison scene in my mind of a girl being poisoned. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, poison in the real world, it happens obviously, but I wanted it in a fantasy setting. And I'm like, what's more fantastical than a Garden of Eden in Atlantis, a hidden city with magic and all the good things? Once I had that scene in mind, I said, okay, these 2 ideas are going to be in one book. And any idea I had, I just kept it in the back of my brain. Maybe I wrote a few things in my notes app, but I didn't really pursue it because I was already working on a novel that I wanted to publish. That's Oge's Custodian. And throughout 2022, I was just brainstorming. I was not in a hurry to like flesh out the story, but I just knew that I was going to write the story one day. The thing is that I didn't even know that the one day was going to come sooner than expected. So the plan was that my first novel, Oge's Custodian, I was going to traditionally publish it. So I was cleaning it up. I was editing it for submission for a publishing house. And in the first week of January, God told me not to submit the book, that I should start working on this fantasy novel. And to be expected, I was upset because I had spent 2 years of my life working on Oge's Custodian, and to say that like, I was already tired of writing and not having anything to show for it, even though I had a few short stories for competitions and journals and magazines, but I did not have something of my own. And when he told me that I should leave the story and like work on Keepers of Piiar, I'm like, like, let me finish this one first now. But I just felt it like so strongly, and I put Oge's Custodian aside. I told my beta readers that, oh, I'm sorry, like I was starting a new novel, and that's how I started in January of 2023. I think I started maybe January 8th or so, and I wrote the first draft. I think maybe that first month of January, I went at it like, because after like 1 year of just thinking about it, like you have a lot of ideas. So that January, I just wrote. And then by March, I had finished the first draft. When I'm writing, what usually comes first to me? Is it the plot or is it the characters? I think a lot of authors get asked that question. And usually for me, it is plot, because I love events, I love things that happen in the story. As a reader, as a movie watcher, I just love it when things are happening. And even if the character is the most fleshed out, the most perfect character, and the story is slow-paced, like I don't really want. So obviously you write the story that you want to read. So usually I start with plot. I start with something happening to the character before I start like figuring out who the character is. But I don't know why I started with character for The Keepers of Piiar. I was just wondering, just brainstorming, oh, how does poison affect the characters in the story? There's a villain in the story. I wanted to know her backstory. I wanted to know her motivations. I wanted to know their weaknesses. I wanted to know everything about the characters. And I was just thinking, because there are a lot of characters in this book, and they are going to, like, their dynamic is going to clash. They're going to support each other. They're going to, like, We have come from different backgrounds, especially mentally. Like, you're going to clash with people, even if you're working towards the same goal. So I started with character, but even though I started with character, I did not leave out the plot. While I was building the characters, I was also following the plot. I think during the brainstorming phase, also before I started writing, I played around this thing, like, oh, you know, when in some horror movies or some movies, you start with the character, and I think that's the main character, but maybe like 5 minutes, 2 minutes into maybe the character dies, and you're like, oh, this is the main character there. I wanted to play around with that, like, oh, is the main character really a main character? And that's when I brought up Lami's best friend. In my mind, I was like, I wanted the audience, or I wanted the reader to not be sure who is the person that's going to take the mantle, especially since the main character, in quotes, doesn't want it. She doesn't care about it. So who else is going to take her place? While I was writing, I was also outlining. I like to call myself a plotter because I will be able to outline everything that happens. But maybe around that middle side, I don't know. I just don't know what's going to happen. Nowadays, instead of me outlining the entire thing, I'll just like outline the first half and maybe the end. Then that middle, I'm just going to leave it like, okay, whatever happens, happens. So I outlined, and as usual, I got to that middle side. I'm like, oh, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm like, just write it. So I wrote it, and even if I outline the entire book, maybe halfway through, I say, okay, no, this character has changed, this person doesn't behave like this person will not act like this, and I deleted like a lot of scenes. So I still deleted quite a few scenes because like I was just like trying to figure out who the characters were and how to figure it out through writing those scenes. While I was writing, I try not to focus on perfectionism, because if you focus on it, you're not going to move forward. You're going to continue like, oh, I don't like it. And that beginning, I did not like it. I felt it was too much, and there were too many characters, and they're just a lot. So I continued writing. There were some rules that I was breaking when I was writing the book, but I just felt that I needed to break those rules because there are certain plot choices that I made, and I can't really explain it. Maybe one day I'll make a video specifically for people that have read the book and talk about like my plot choices, the writing choices that I made, the decisions that I made surrounding the book. While I was writing, I also was doing world building. That's the setting, because this is a city that doesn't exist in real life. And all throughout my adulthood, I've been writing stories like that are set in the real world. So I had to like do a lot of world building. I had to do a lot of culture setting. Like, this is how the people are, this is how the culture is, this is how they worship, this is how everything happens. I had to build everything from scratch. There's no currency, there's no, they don't call it school. While I was building the world, I also had a vibe of the place in mind. I had a place of peace. I imagine all these places where it's just tranquil, the lake is quiet, maybe there are birds, it's just quiet. Like, there's no stress in the land. Like, everybody, they have tasks to do, but they're doing it at their own pace. People like to swim, people like to chill, people like to fish. Like, I wanted a place that is just soft life. I finished the first draft in March and started the second draft in April. By April, I was at 71k words, even though maybe like 20k or 15k of those words contained scenes that I did not want in the book. But I just kept on pushing. I told my writer and reader friends that, okay, see you, I'm writing a book, please come and beta read for me. And I think May, I divided the book into 4-5 sections. And while I was editing the second draft, I'll be sending the sections to them for them to comment. I sent it in a Google Doc. So they were only able to comment and like tell me changes, and they told me things that I could improve on the book. And it was around this time that something happened, and I'm going to make a video on it, but it's not really like a bad thing, but I'm going to make a video on it. I told one of my friends that I wanted them to beta read for me because I felt that, oh, they were very good in the literary world, and they asked me, oh, when are you publishing the book? And I'm like, oh, I want to publish it in December. And they're like, there's no rush now. But the person did not say it in a bad way, just like, like, you started this book in January and want to publish it in December, like, there's no rush. And I agreed because I had spent 2 years before, like, working on Oge's Custodian, and it still wasn't ready. And I'm like, Oge's Custodian is a very niche book. There are very few characters, and they're going towards a certain goal. But these Keepers of Piiar, there are plenty of characters. All of them have different goals. And even though all their goals are going to merge in book 3, but, like, there are just a lot of things to look at. I'm like, if I worked on Oge's Custodian in 2 years and it was not ready, and see these Keepers of Piiar that was bigger in scale, and like I was going to self-publish it, I needed more time to like work on it. So I think it was that July that I relaxed. I relaxed. I'm like, okay, there's no rush. In August, I didn't really work on my book like that because I had exams, and I also was in my school's pageant, so there was a lot of stress. By the time the semester was over in September, I just sat down with myself and I'm like, I get the person was saying it out of the goodness of their heart. There's like, nobody wants you to put out a bad book, but God had already told me that I needed to publish my book in 2023, that year, and I needed to obey it. So I started again with renewed fervency, and I wanted to write. I think it was around that time that I was already doubting myself, because I agree with what the person said. Like, I had a lot of plot holes. I just felt that my main character was annoying. I just did not know how to make her likable. Like, different things. There's so many things wrong with that book by September. By November, by December, I was shish. But let me go in a linear fashion. I started the third draft October, November, and it was around that time that I had the most fun, even though there were still plot holes. But people don't like to edit, but I love to edit, because like, I've written the story, like everything is down. I know things about the characters. They've said so, but all I just need to do is just make it good, make it better. So I just loved the third draft, because like, I've written everything. Okay, not everything, but most of the things that I need to write. So I'm just looking at the sentences. Okay, this sentence is good. Or no, let me carry this sentence to another chapter. Or all those kind of things. I loved the third draft. But I still felt that I don't like my main character. I don't like her. Then some other characters, I had issues. I started the fourth draft December. The first draft was just to look at punctuation, was just to look at like just minor details. But I felt that I was still pushing it, because it was 2 weeks to the publication date, and there were still some things that I did not like. Oh my God, there were still some things that I did not like. So it was, apart from the minor details that I changed, there were still a few major things that I changed 1 week to the publication date. For example, my chapter 1. I rewrote my chapter 1. First thing, it was not hooking, like, it did not hook the readers enough. And I tried, and I don't want to make it too come. Like, it feels like very, when you are begging somebody to come and read your book. I don't want it like that. Some people might disagree with, because people have different tastes, but I felt that the way I did that chapter 1, the new way, it was the right way to begin the book. And even though I still like had a few issues with it, because usually they tell you not to start with a lot of expositions and explaining the story, but I just felt that I needed to do that. And the other thing I did was I added a chapter 26. And before I forget, the third major change that I did was give one of my characters a flaw. She was almost perfect. She was like perfect. She was a perfect character, and I know that people are going to like her, readers are going to like her, but I just needed, I felt that she was too good. She was angelic. So I gave her a flaw, maybe around that chapter 4, 5, 6. I can't remember the exact chapter. And I felt that it makes people like, oh, that little shock is like, it's give her a little bit of humanity. Like, she's not perfect. If you have read the book and you understand what I mean, you understand that the little minor flaw that I gave her was a last-minute decision. And I think, yeah, it was nice. I liked it. That flaw that I gave her made one of the other major characters hate her so much. Like, but not hate her so much, but like, just disliked her. Like, see you. Like, I'm sorry, I can't spoil the book, but I hope you read the book. I have 5 free chapters linked below in my description box, and you can buy the ebook or the paperback version. But like, let's continue. After the 4th draft, because I had like basically no budget, I decided to run the book through Grammarly. And I thought it was going to be an easy task. Like, Grammarly doesn't take too much time. And I don't know why it took 2 days of like consistently just staring at the laptop, just fixing what Grammarly suggested. And the main issue was, even Grammarly said, like, when it's a fantasy novel, you form nouns and adjectives and just form words, and Grammarly is telling me correct it is. I'm like, oh God, why is half of this telling me correct things that you should obviously know that this is not a real English word. So there are also like a few things that Grammarly will just tell you to change, even though it was like stylistic choices, but there are a few things I changed. Maybe if I say she was really happy, obviously this is like a very simple example, but like Normally you say don't do really happy, use excited. Obviously, like on a sentence level, like excited is like better than really happy. But sometimes you just want to say that really something, really happy. Then I self-published my book, and I'm going to make a dedicated video on how I self-published my book because it's a long story too. When I published, people read the book, and a few people still told me that they saw like a few mistakes. And I'm like, Grammarly, see what you missed, even though me too, I missed it, but I'm glad that they actually told me that, okay, these are some mistakes that I saw. And there were not a lot, but yeah, a few readers saw some mistakes and I still corrected it. Now that my book is out into the world, what are a few lessons that I've learned writing this book? A lot of your favorite authors are not 100% happy with their books. When I see done is better than perfect, I just think, okay, like, done is better than perfect, but I'm like, there are a lot of people that I look up to and like, their books are so good. And like, even if their books are like the best thing, I feel that at one point, you just have to give up and just say, well, take the book, just take it. Like, I've done my best, and if I continue working on the book, I'm going to hold this book for years. And because you keep on improving. And if you think that, oh, until my book is perfect, I can't publish it, then you're not going to publish anything. So I think at one point, you just have to give up and just say, this is it. I hope you like it. Read it. The fact that it is May now, and it's been 5 months since I published, and the amount of things that I look back on, I'm like, oh my god, like that I could change this, I could change this, I could change this. So I feel like, imagine if it's only 5 months after the publication date, and I already feel that, oh, I could have improved in certain ways, because maybe I have already improved in the 5 months. So imagine me in 40 years, and I look back on my debut novel, and I'm like, oh, but like, I'll still be proud of myself, because I feel the book is good. I just have improved so much, like, okay, I get, like, I'm looking on my younger self, my 22-year-old self. I'm like, okay, you did well, Sha. It was okay, the book was okay. You know, as a 60-something-year-old woman, like, okay, you could have done better, but it's okay for your age. The thing that I've learned is that I'm currently working on book 2, and I still struggle with the writing process. Like, things still don't come easily to me. I still struggle with the characters. I still struggle with plot holes and just different things, just different aspects of the writing process. And you think that, okay, you have written a book, you've published it, it should be a little bit easier for you. I think it doesn't get easier, but I think that the knowledge of, oh, okay, I struggled with book 1, I had plot holes, I had self-doubt, I felt that this book was not good enough. And even though I had those things, I moved on, I finished the book, and the book is out into the world, and people like it. So it just gives you a little bit of knowledge that, okay, I've done it before, I can do it again. So even if I'm like, oh my god, the book is stressing me out, or it's not coming to my mind, or things are happening, I just feel like it is very reassuring that once you have written a book from start to finish, even if you are struggling in the next book, you can still do it again because you have done it before. So all you have to do is just write, finish, move on, write, finish, and like, even if you struggle, it becomes better. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe. Share with somebody that you think that needs to watch this video, that may be procrastinating writing their book, or is just curious about a writer's writing process. The Keepers of PIIAR is a fantasy series, the first book in a trilogy, and I have 5 free chapters for you to download below and read. If you like those free chapters, you can read the book on Bound Books, Amazon, or Seller, or wherever you find your books, because you can find it on Barnes & Noble, you can find it on Kobo, you can find it wherever. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Until next time.